Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday Night Drive Western Suburbs podcast. I'm Josh Welge here with Joel Boenitz, recording here on Tuesday afternoon. Joel, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I think, I've had my fair share of different games throughout the first 3 weeks of high school football. So, I've gotten a mix of everything, and I'm feeling pretty good so far.
No doubt. I mean, we're 1/3 in the regular season, but I feel like we're just getting started. Um, the way our teams are, I'm pretty confident that we're going to be covering football into Thanksgiving weekend. So hopefully that holds true. Joel, last week 3, we entered into conference season for a lot of our teams, a lot of rivalry type games, conference type games. You and I were at 2 of them. Some good ones too. I mean, different kind of games, yours and mine, but games, both of them came down to the wire. Start with yours, Geneva, St. Charles North, and St. Charles North, a team that they've shown they can win the close game with high scoring ability. And apparently they can do it the other way too. Low scoring struggle, and they come out on top.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that honestly I expected it to be close. I did not expect it to be 10-7 though. At the end of the day, I expected, Duquesne Conference, they're known for, getting points on the board, stuff like that. I was thinking maybe, 22-21, something like that. But, 10-7 victory, it was definitely an interesting one to see, but it was a very quick game on top of that as well. I mean, both St. Charles North and Geneva were having so much success in running the ball in that game. And, at the start, I've got to say, even though Geneva lost that game, they definitely surprised me, especially considering, the team that I saw the week before. I mean, holding a team like St. Charles North to just set 10 points, they commanded the clock pretty much the entire first half. And it was just the question of if they could do that in the second half. And, they almost did, but it was just that one touchdown at the beginning of the second half that ended up being the difference maker. But, I think it's a good sign for both of these teams. For St. Charles North, it's, hey, we can win these, games that aren't always high scoring. And for Geneva, it's a good sign that, hey, we can keep up with these teams that are projected to be, on top of the Duquesne Conference this year. So, I think it's a good game. It was a great game for both of the teams.
Yeah, that was totally my read on it too. Because Geneva, I mean, after that week 2 game where they lost 35-6 to Oswego, start to question just a little bit, like, all right, what is this Geneva team going to be about? Because they really weren't pushed at all in week 1, and then they go right into the conference season to go to St. Charles North. I mean, nobody likes to lose, nobody likes to be 1-2. But yeah, I mean, the way they took St. Charles North to the wire, probably feeling a little better about things, after week 3. And I mean, now they got to get Wheaton, Warrenville South. I mean, that's the nature of the beast in the Duquesne conferences. You go, from 1 week to the next, and they will this week, as with Wheaton South coming in their place.
And I mean, that's one of the fun things about the Duquesne Conference is that every single week it's kind of unpredictable for the most part what's going to happen. I mean, each team prepares in a different way for every other team in the conference, and it's just who executes the best each night. I mean, you never know what you're going to get with some of these games. And I mean, week 9 of last season proved that extremely well. And so, it's interesting, and I'm excited to see what Geneva does, especially considering, some of the hard hitters that they're going to get, in these coming weeks here.
Yeah, another good game on Friday, the game that I was at in Sandwich, the game that was nothing like yours, except for the fact that it came in the last few minutes. Sandwich coming out on top 32-30 in the 114th edition of the War on Route 34, going back to 1897. Boy, Joel, the game made me dizzy. I mean, it just was back and forth with long touchdowns. I mean, one team would break a 65-yarder, the next team would break a 60-yarder. Just the defenses really had difficulty stopping each other. Sandwiches, Nick Michaelek, tremendous game, 218 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jeffrey Ashley also went over 100 yards with a couple of touchdowns. But Colton Shamandel for Plano, he had a couple long touchdowns, ran for like 160 yards and a couple touchdowns. And their quarterback played well. A sophomore for Plano that people want to keep an eye on. Cooper Beatty, he's leading them in tackles. He also caught a touchdown in that game. I wrote about him in my Kendall County notebook this week, that he's a kid that you want to keep an eye on going forward. Does not look at all like a sophomore. But Sandwich coming out on top. I mean, Plano had a field goal for the lead with about 5 minutes left. Bad snap, wasn't able to get it off. And then Sandwich got the ball back. They had a situation. They had a 4th and about a yard with about 3:45 left, leading 32-30 from their own 29-yard line. They called timeout. They meet at the sidelines, and they decided to go for it. And I remember during the timeout thinking, I think they should go for it, because while it was a risky decision being all the way back at their 29, again, one of those games that neither team could stop each other. And I really thought that if you give the other team a chance to get their offense back on the field, probably bad things are going to happen to your team. Sandwich gets the first down. They run the clock out. They run out the last almost 6 minutes of the game. They win the game. So really, really exciting game. Sandwich and Plano. Yeah, fun game to watch.
Yeah, I'm sure Sandwich was rocking after that. I mean, of course, getting a victory over, of course, a longtime rival like Plano in that sort of setting is definitely a big confidence booster. And I know, obviously, we talked about it last year, how, it could be a catalyst for, a team like that who went into it winless. And of course, Sandwich ended up going to the playoffs. It can be the same thing again this year.
Yeah, they started 0-2 last year. They beat, in week 3. They went on to go 5-4 and make the playoffs. Obviously, they're hoping to do that again. You mentioned it was rocking. It was rocking before the game, during the game, and after the game. They had a fireworks show before the game as the teams came out. Then a lot of activity during the game, and then a lot of excitement after the game. So a lot of fun on Sandwich on Friday night. So, Joel, as I was kind of looking at some of the stories and some of the games on Friday night, one of the themes that I noticed was teams that their starting quarterbacks were hurt, they still managed to win some important conference games. Downers Grove North, Wheaton North, and Glenbard West all did that on Friday night. I'll start with Downers Grove North. They're really good quarterback, Owen Lansu. He got dinged up week 2. Our reporter there, that was at week 3, said his non-throwing arm was in a cast on Friday. Not quite sure the extent of the injury, but it does not sound like it's going to be a 1 or 2 week injury. It's going to be something that keeps him out for a while. I know their coach, Joe Horeni, said that he hopes to get him back this year, but he did not play. Kevin Jay, who is their running back, a junior running back, he took over a quarterback, first time playing quarterback since 8th grade. And I think it was one of those guys that run the ball and pass the ball. And really their defense kind of won the game for him. It was a 9-7 final for Downers Grove North, getting the win over a previous unbeaten Hinsdale Central. In the last minute or so, Kevin Jay throws a touchdown pass to Will Vala, an Illinois recruit. And then Will Vala got a strip sack in the last minute of the game to preserve the win. So Downers Grove North, without Owen Lansu, gets a really good win. And now they're still undefeated going into a tough game against Glenbard West, which leading right into it, Glenbard West has been without their starting quarterback, AJ Rayford, the last couple weeks. Actually, they're able to get a kind of a sneaky tough game against Oak Park River Forest. I don't know if I was expecting it to be that close to the game, but it was close throughout. And then they were finally able to pull through. Jamarcus Kelly had a really good game for them, ran for a couple touchdowns. So without AJ Rayford, they're able to get their second straight win without him. It does sound like AJ Rayford, it could be a situation where he's back a little bit sooner. I mean, there was some thought that he was going to be back this last Friday. He obviously didn't play, but they're hopeful to get him back soon. And finally, Wheaton North, their quarterback got hurt in week 2. Boy, I tell you what, you probably saw the high. I mean, Max Zerbeck, they just were like, all right, we're just going to give the ball to Max over and over and over again. 48 carries, 301 yards, I think.
I think it was 308.
308 yards, and I believe 2 or 3 touchdowns. Carrying the rock all night long. They're able to get the win over Lake Park. I don't know the extent on how long the quarterback is going to be out. I don't know if 48 carries for a kid is sustainable, but for one night, they got it done.
Yeah, I mean, a game like that, I mean, considering how how the turntable or how the running back room was kind of like a turntable last year for Wheaton North, how they had I believe like 4 different running backs that I saw in the couple of games that I saw for them. To have somebody like that just carry the rock for them for over 300 yards, especially against a team like Lake Park, who, need I remind you, knocked them out of playoff contention in week 9 last season. That's definitely a good sign for Wheaton North. And that's kind of a team that's, in these first 3 weeks, they've kind of been like, okay, we can see, they could be in contention for for the playoffs again after missing out last season. And, a performance like that is definitely a good sign. It's going to be tested for sure next week against St. Charles North. But, getting a victory like that in that way without your starting quarterback, it's definitely a good confidence booster to start Duke conference play for Wheaton North.
Yeah, no doubt. They've been kind of interesting team to watch for a few weeks. You mentioned. I mean, they beat Simeon week 1. That was a good win. Even after they lost their starting quarterback against Stevenson last week, they still had a chance to win at the end. I think they had a field goal that hit the upright for the tie in the last minute at Stevenson. Then they come back and beat a sneaky, tricky Lake Park team that I think is going to be heard of before the season's out. So a good way for them to open up Duquesne Conference play. Max Serbic, my God, 48 carries. Jeez, can you imagine what his Saturday morning was like? I mean, he must have had ice here, there, and everywhere on him.
He probably had like the full like leg casts that they use, where that's just like it just completely engulfs the legs. He's just like sitting on the couch, just not moving at all. I'm sure that's exactly how he felt after that.
Yeah, man, I can only imagine. I remember interviewing a player a few years ago, and about after they had a really busy night, and asking him what his Saturday morning was like, and he was like, I mean, he was, I mean, you could just kind of feel what he was going through the phone. But yeah, congratulations to Wheaton North and Max Serbic. Good win on Friday. Before we take a break, I want to just kind of go around another kind of theme from last Friday. There was some area Catholic League teams. They were able to stay undefeated. Montini goes to 3-0. Fenwick goes to 3-0. IC Catholic, a team coming off of a rare season missing the playoffs, they go 3-0. Montini with a really nice goal line stand at the end of the game to beat Marist. That's a really quality win. Fenwick, in kind of an interesting game from Fenwick maybe going in one direction, the other team going in another direction. Fenwick's able to beat Joliet Catholic. Jemin Williams, their quarterback, had a really good game. And Jake Thies had an interception and also ran for a long touchdown. And then IC Catholic beating St. Ignatius, another larger school, being able to beat them. And IC Catholic, I think, showing that maybe they're going to be a team that's going to be heard of from this season. I mean, they got Nazareth coming up week 4. That's going to be a real chore for them. In week 4, but they got to be feeling much better about things with a 3-0 record through 3 weeks.
For sure, especially after missing the playoffs last year for IC Catholic. I mean, definitely good to start off the season 3-0 before, kind of starting a tougher, schedule down the line. But I think a big thing on top of that, I mean, we talk about Montini, we talk about Fenwick, both pulling off those victories, and because of that, Marist and Joliet Catholic are both 0-3. On top of that, I know they aren't, teams that we cover in the Western Suburbs podcast, but that's a big thing, especially for some of those teams that, have a potential to play in the playoffs. Like, you're thinking about, 5A teams for Joliet Catholic. I forget which class Marist is in, but like those are 2 teams that you do not want to see as, one of the upper seeds, facing off against a 5-4 Joliet Catholic or Marist. So to see them at 0-3 and basically need to go 5-1 for the rest of their slate to win, I mean, I'm sure a couple of these Western Suburb teams are looking and being like, can they do it? And will we have to face them in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, Marist is an 8A program, and I know Montini, people that follow Montini in playoffs are like, oh, well, Montini's loaded every year. I mean, Montini's they're a much smaller program in school than Marist. I mean, to be able to beat Marist is a pretty good achievement for them. To be able to move to 3-0, they got to be feeling pretty good about themselves. So, a lot of good stuff coming out of week 3, a lot of good stuff coming to week 4. Maybe you want to take a quick break, hear from our sponsors. We'll come back and get into it.
I'm State Representative Steve Reich. Since 2017, I've led the fight to reform our child welfare system and supported educational choice for every kid in Illinois. I've worked to stop the collapse of our public pensions while standing up for businesses that are being crushed by crippling mandates. And I've never forgotten who pays the bill. The work isn't finished, and as I run for re-election, I'm asking for your support. I'm Steve Reich, and I approve this message.
SGKR Injury Attorneys tackles the toughest cases. I'm Matt Rundio. When life throws a flag, we go on offense to protect your rights. Don't get sidelined. Score a touchdown with SGKR. Visit us at sgkr.law.
At Oliver's, we are proud to serve our community. We serve up great customer service, quality products, ease of shopping, and we serve up delicious barbecued sandwiches at our fundraiser cookouts. So stop by Oliver's, 748 North Britton and Dixon, and help fund our local clubs and events.
In Illinois and into Iowa, the story of Shaw Media is a story of trust. Since 1851, we've been informing, connecting, and reflecting the communities we serve, large and small, rural and urban, suburban, and river towns alike. With dozens of local newspapers, radio stations, magazines, and specialty brands like Friday Night Drive and Starve Rock Country, we meet people wherever they are. We shine a light on local government. We celebrate Friday night touchdowns. We tell the stories that shape your day, from neighborhood heroes to the Chicago Bears. But what truly sets us apart? It's our people. The award-winning journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers who live here, work here, and care deeply about what matters most to you. We don't just report the news. We're part of the fabric of the places we serve, from the Mississippi to the Illinois, from the Fox all the way to the chain of lakes. Trusted for generations, still earning it every day. Shaw Media, your most trusted local source.
Back here on the Friday Night Drive, Western Suburbs podcast. Josh Welge here with Joel Boenitz. And Joel, we look ahead now to week 4. I want to start with the game that you're going to be at on Friday. Ottawa playing at Canelan. Canelan is a team that, I don't know if it's quietly, I don't know if it's under the radar, but the bottom line is they're 3-0. And I tell you what, the last few years, they've kind of been like, it's been Sycamore, Rochelle, and Morris. And then Canelan's sort of been like the next peg down that you think, all right, are they going to be able to compete and rise up in that conference? I wonder if this is a year, because they are off to a really good start. Carter Grousey's been tremendous. Jalen Carter, the transfer from St. Louis or St. Francis, has been very good. They have pretty good defense. And then on the same token, I mean, Sycamore, I mean, they struggled with DeKalb. And Canelan just throttled DeKalb last week. I know you can't really go by those games all the times, but I will in that case. So you wonder about that. Sycamore just lost last week pretty handily to Muhammad Seymour. Rochelle, I know they're down their starting quarterback now. They just lost to Lena Winslow last week. Meanwhile, Canelan just keeps rolling. I do wonder if Canelan's ready to really kind of compete for that upper echelon in the conference. And it starts Friday against Ottawa, a team that started 2-0. They lost to LP last week. So, I'm really curious about Canelan.
Yeah, I kind of am too. And that's part of the reason why I kind of wanted to go down there to see it. I mean, obviously, Canelan started 4-0 last year, and then they, ended the season 5-4. So, the question is going to be for them is if they're going to improve enough to, avoid that, 3-game losing streak that they went on right after going 4-0. And, I think this is going to be a really big, game for them, because if they can, kind of run up the score against Ottawa and hold the Pirates to, a low score, they let up 21 points to them last season. They can hold them to, a low score there. I think that gives the team a lot of confidence on both sides of the ball, especially heading into those games against, of course, Sycamore and Rochelle. And, I think this is going to be a big indicator of if there's going to be, a shakeup in the Interstate 8 this year. So I'm interested to see what happens there.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Another game that I kind of got my eye on, a couple 3-0 teams actually in the Southwest Prairie Conference. Yorkville 3-0, going to Plainfield East 3-0. Yorkville, a team that, they went 4-5 last year, missed playoffs for the first time in like 7 years. They come back. They've won 3 close games the first few weeks. They did it again last Friday. Their defense held up. They got a late touchdown from Jack Beetham to TJ Harlan to win the game, to beat Minooka 14-13, which I thought was a pretty good win for them beating Minooka. Minooka was a good team that I thought was going to be one of the better teams in the Southwest Prairie West Division. And then Plainfield East, I mean, they were 2-7 last year. They're 3-0 now. And I mean, you could say who they play. Their first few games, the schedule's been a little light, I would say, the first few weeks, but the bottom line is they're still 3-0. And talking to Yorkville coach Dan McGuire on Monday night, he was saying they're just fast. He's like, they got state track qualifiers all over the place on their roster, and he's really got his antenna up for what they have going into Friday night with Plainfield East.
Yeah, I kind of would too, especially considering the fact that Plainfield East has scored 55 points in all 3 of their games to start the season. Of course, when it comes to the Southwest Prairie, when it comes to the 2 different, divisions, there's always a divide there. I mean, whenever it comes to, these kind of crossover events between the West and the East, the West usually is the one that comes out on top with this. But I mean, I'm very interested to see if Plainfield East can kind of turn that around against a team like Yorkville. I mean, obviously both of these teams are coming in 3-0, but both of these teams look kind of dangerous. And it looks like it's going to be, a battle between Plainfield East's offense and then, of course, Yorkville's defense as well. So I'm really interested to see which one of those 2 come out on top in this.
Oh, I would agree with that. It's definitely a clash of styles, because I would definitely say Yorkville is not a track meet, let's win 42-35 type of team. They're quite comfortable playing 14-10, 14-7, type games. They have a good defense. They have a really good special teams. They have a very good kicker and punter. And they got a senior quarterback that can make plays late in the game. So, they definitely don't want to get into shootout with Plainfield East. But, yeah, it should be a fun matchup on Friday. Another matchup game I'm keeping an eye on in the Fox Valley Conference and Rocket Hill. Are they tailgating yet at Rocket Hill? I mean, that place is rocking on Friday with Prairie Ridge coming to town. It's got to be one of the biggest games at Burlington Central in some time.
Yeah, I'm sure Matt Rodewald has his tent up there already. I know he already has an office there, but he has a tent. He has everything ready there. But yeah, no, I mean, this is kind of a historic start for Burlington Central. I mean, this is the first time they're 3-0 since 2005, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since they've been undefeated this far into the season. I mean, of course, Prairie Ridge is kind of on a high note as well. It's going to be another question of which is going to come out on top, the Burlington Central defense or the Prairie Ridge offense. This is going to be a really fun game. It's going to be a really fun atmosphere to be around. I've got to say, honestly, when I was looking at it, I was like, I might want to go to that game. But of course, Joe Aguilar beat me to it. So I was, I am kind of jealous that he gets to be there and I'm not. But, it's fine. It's fine.
Both years in the Fox Valley Conference, the game of the year is Cary Grove and Prairie Ridge, and it's still one of the games of the year. But I think this year, this might be the game of the year with Burlington Central hosting Prairie Ridge in the Fox Valley Conference. Another match with 3-0, a couple teams that I touched on in the week 3 rewind. Fenwick going to Montini. Both teams 3-0. If I'm not mistaken, Fenwick was the last team to beat Montini last year before Montini went on to win the Class 3A state championship. Both of those teams are really good again. Both of those teams have really good quarterbacks. For Fenwick, Jamin Williams is back for them. He was hurt for some time last year. He's off to a great start. And of course, Montini, Izzy Abrams, one of the best quarterbacks in the state. I mean, just scholarship offers left and right. I mean, 20 offers, something like that. He's off to a good start. Both teams have really good defenses as well. That's going to be a fun one for sure. That's one of the games of the week for sure. Fenwick and Montini.
Mm-hmm, for sure. It's just a battle of some Chicago Catholic League powerhouses for the most part. And, I think it's going to be really interesting to see, how these two teams play out. Obviously, there is a chance that it's going to be, an offensive shootout, considering, the talent that both sides have on offense. But at the same time, there could be some defense in there, and should be interesting to see.
So a lot of good games on Friday night, a lot of good games on Saturday as well, at least a couple of them. In the West Suburban Silver, Hinsdale Central is going to be playing at Lions, and then Downers Grove North is going to be at Duchamp Field at Glenbard West. I'll start with that second one. I mean, both Downers Grove North and Glenbard West coming into this game 3-0. Glenbard West, after the very uncharacteristic season they had last year, I think is sort of reestablish themselves as a team to watch, a team that's going to, hopefully for them go to the playoffs and be a factor in the West Suburban Silver. And I think this weekend could be one of those like plant the flag weekends, like we're back, baby. I mean, because Downers Grove North has established themselves the last couple years as a team that's been one of the top teams in that league. And then, they've gone really deep in 7 of the last 2 years. They've beaten Glenbard West the last couple years. They beat them pretty badly last year, if I'm not mistaken. I bet Glenbard West they're chomping at the bit for that one. And then Hinsdale Central and Lions. I mean, I wondered last week in this podcast, if Hinsdale Central was ready to take the next step in the West Suburban Silver. They almost did it. They lost 9-7 to Downers Grove North, and now they go to Lions. It's probably their biggest rival in that league. Lions is undefeated. Couple really good ones in the silver that's going to start to shape the silver race.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the thing that'll be interesting, especially for that Glenbard West and Downers Grove North game. I mean, we kind of touched on it earlier. Both of them are down the starting quarterback. I don't think anybody expected that the matchup was going to be Kevin J versus Jack Walty at the quarterback battle for these two teams. But I think this is going to be a big. I agree with you that this is going to be a big week for the West Suburban Silver, because I think this is going to, kind of place people as like, okay, this is where your expectation should probably be for these teams. And, I'm interested to see, how it all shakes out.
That Glenbard West Downers Grove North game sure has the makings of a 10-9 in the fourth quarter type game. So I'm sure it'll be 35-31 and just back and forth type game. But yeah, I mean, Kevin J and Jack Walty, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I had never heard of those two young men going into the season, but they've been pretty significant parts of their team's success in the early going.
Who knows? We can have another 5-3 game as well. You never know with these games sometimes.
No, you really don't. Joel, any other games you kind of keep an eye on, Duquesne Conference or otherwise?
Yeah, I think Duquesne Conference. I got 2 games kind of in mind. Obviously, we kind of touched on it. Wheaton North versus St. Charles North. I think this is going to be a big game for Wheaton North. Obviously, besides last year, past couple of years, this matchup has been a really fun one in a couple of senses. It's kind of decided, who gets second and who gets third in the Duquesne Conference. And, it could be interesting to see, if these teams, can set up for that. St. Charles North struggled with the rush to start off the game against Geneva. And if Wheaton North is able to establish that with Max Cervic again, maybe he could go for 50 rushes this time. I'm interested to see, what happens in that game and, the adjustments that are made from both sides. And on top of that, there's also Wheaton Warrenville South heading over to Geneva in week 4. I mean, this is a big game for both of these teams. Wheaton Warrenville South, if they get the victory against Geneva, kind of proves, hey, we can be in the upper echelon of these Duquesne Conference teams this year. And for Geneva, it's a difference between being 2-2 or 1-3. And, considering, the schedule ahead of them, it's definitely going to be big for them to get to win. And it's definitely going to be a big confidence booster for that young offense if they're able to get things fully moving, especially like they did in their first drive against St. Charles North last week.
Yeah, 2 other games that I'm kind of keeping an eye on is IC Catholic hosting Nazareth. We talked about it earlier in the podcast. Nazareth's coming off the win to Mount Carmel, or loss to Mount Carmel. No shame there. And IC Catholic, of course, 3-0, and kind of similar to last week with Nazareth. I'm kind of like, all right, I don't think IC can beat. I should say I'm very doubtful that they can beat Nazareth, but how competitive can they be? Because if they're like right there with Nazareth, who is a few classes up from them, that really tells me that IC Catholic, I think they could probably stack a few more wins, get to the playoffs, and then be a real force. So very curious on that one. And then in the West Suburban Gold, 2 teams that have really been the class of that league over the last 10 years, Downers Grove South and Willowbrook. Downers Grove South has won it the last 3 years, Willowbrook for like 7 years before that. They come into this game a combined 1-5. Downers Grove South is 0-3. They had a really heartbreaking loss to Addison Trail last week. Willowbrook is 1-2. And Downers Grove South has been able to get to the playoffs pretty regularly the last few years. And the West Suburban Gold, it's not the strongest league in the world, but you know what? You don't want to go 1-4. You really don't. So this is a pretty big game for both of those teams to kind of get back on track, get a win, put themselves in position in the league, and get themselves back on track as they try to chase those 5 wins to get to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's kind of a tale of two different teams, or a tale of, kind of two different trails for the team, or for the two games that you mentioned. Obviously, IC Catholic missed the playoffs last year and is trying to get their road back into the playoffs this year. And then, of course, you mentioned Danish Grove South and Willowbrook, kind of on that, the bad track to start the season. And they're going to try, and both teams kind of need a win to kind of turn it around and, pave their clear path to the playoffs. So should be interesting.
Should. A lot of good stuff coming up on Friday night and Saturday afternoon. We'll be covering both of those games on Saturday as well. A lot of good stuff coming up on Friday Night Drive. I'll be back here tomorrow with Steve Susie as we look around to some of the top games around the state, and I'm sure we'll discuss a little Steve Susie playoff projection and stuff like that along the way. Steve will be recording the Kankakee Area podcast with Mason Schweizer. Of course, Thursday, JT Peddley and Eddie Criffio have their South and West podcast. And then Friday night, Steve is back with Matt Rotohold with their live stream. I always love watching that live stream. We're so busy during the night, but then I felt like last Friday, I was like up at 1:30 in the morning, and I was just kind of watching that for a while. So it's a pretty good watch, whether you're watching it at 9 or 9:30 or 1:30 in the morning. But a lot of good stuff coming up. Joel, before we get out of here, any parting thoughts?
I mean, this is a crucial week for some of these teams, and should be interesting to see. It will definitely have a much clearer picture on what the potential playoff picture is going to be after this week.
No doubt about it. Looking forward to it. We're going to get out of here again for Joel Boenitz. This is Josh Welge. Everyone, you have a great Tuesday afternoon and week 4.